to Blacklight Mass Incarceration Show. I am your host, Sierra Cobb. Blacklight Mass Incarceration Show is a space that is used to uplift the unheard voices of the criminal and social justice issues that many face today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Blacklight Mass Incarceration Show, the podcast that shines light on a powerful light in dark corners of America's justice system. Here, we amplify the voices too often silenced, the system impacted by advocates, the families, and the fighters. We break down the policies, expose injustice, and challenge the narratives that fuel mass incarceration. This is more than a conversation. It's a movement for truth, accountability, and change. And I'm your host, Sierra, so let's get into it. So today I have Sasha. Sasha is here to tell her story. A lot of times we don't hear the side of women who have experienced incarceration or addiction. And I thought it would be good to amplify more voices of our womanhood who have experienced things caused by the system. And so today I have Sasha. Sasha, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Sasha Daughtery. I am from Somerset, Kentucky. Today I work not only one job, but 3 jobs. I have 2 years in sobriety and I sponsor other women, and that's about it.
Great. Thank you for that. So, Sasha, before we talk about, the addiction or prison, will you let the audience know who you are today?
I am a fun-loving, outgoing person who recovery has given me my life back. Not only has recovery given me life back, it has given me my family back. And like I mentioned before, I don't only work one job, I work 3 jobs. I'm very productive in the community. I sponsor different women at different rehabs today. I like seeing the light come back into them when they have, felt like they have nothing left.
Yeah. And if you kind of want to go more in depth into that, because I don't think that society understands how hard it is for a woman to, for one, recover, and then two, keep pushing, especially if they have kids when they have no light.
So a little bit about that is a lot of the girls that come into treatment, they're broken down. And what I mean by that is, society says we're not good moms if we don't have our kids, if we've let somebody else raise our kids, if our kids has been taken from us. And as a mother and who has lost her child, you start to believe those things. And through recovery and working on yourself and a lot of therapy and, finding out who they are, they start to discover that they were not bad moms. They were just sick moms. And that's what I mean by, seeing the light come back into them, seeing them, restore their bonds with their children at family day, at holidays. Their families are welcome to come into these spaces where they live and get to visit. And I think that is the most beautiful thing that recovery homes are doing for the women. And not just women, but men also.
Yeah, I don't think that we talk enough about recovery. We just talk about the addiction and what led to the addiction. Sometimes we don't even talk about what led to addiction. It's just you're addict and you'll never be anything. Leading into that, can you share with us what led you into addiction, as comfortable as it is that you want to speak about it, and how did it begin to affect your life?
Okay, so really I'll backtrack and I'll try to make this as quickly without drawing out as I can. So my trauma started at age 9, probably a little bit before that, but age 9 is what I remember. And I was in 2nd grade being told that my mom had died. And not only did she die, but she committed suicide, and that fear of abandonment crept in. And not only did that happen, but like a lot of abuse was happening at home. My dad was very abusive physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it got to the point that, at 9 years old, I was cutting myself, running away from home. I was acting out in school. I became what everybody else wanted me to be. And then along with that, I was shoved into different foster cares. I spent my 15th birthday sitting in the courthouse of my hometown being told that I couldn't go home because, a girl in the locker room had reported the bruises up and down my body. And so they come to the school and question me about it. And of course, I was always told, you don't tell what's going on at home, because I knew that was going to be worse when I got home. If I
Right.
if I was able to go home. So I lied to the Kentucky State Police, told them nothing was going on. They didn't believe that because of the amount of bruises. So I spent my 15th birthday, waiting for someone to take me in. And so like right then and there, I felt not good enough. The abandonment, all the things just started kicking in. And so drinking at a very young age made me feel part of the cool kids club. And then it led to other things. And then later on in life, a lot of abuse started happening. And I got married at a very young age. My daughter was beaten. I was stabbed twice. My daughter was taken out of care of my custody. She was legally adopted. And then off and running I went.
Yeah, I don't think that that is talked about as much with women as far as abuse leads to, addiction or mental health issues. And then especially when you aren't getting love and you feeling abandoned, you don't have that relationship with your father, that leads to you going out trying to find the love that you should have gotten from your father. I know about that because, I've had that experience trying to find love from a man that I didn't get from my father. Because as they always say, your father is supposed to be your first love. He teaches you how to love. He's supposed to teach you what a man is supposed to treat you like. And so when you don't have that, is something in you that is desperate to find that. And so a lot of times you end up with men who can sense the vulnerability in you and therefore they take advantage of that. And so, a lot of times we're so traumatized from that point that we don't see those red flags. So we're not like, oh, well, I see that he gets angry a lot. And so, we're just trying to find that love. And a lot of times you don't know what true love is because you didn't get it. You know what I mean? You just know it from abuse. So I totally can relate on that as well with you. So you kind of told us how you became addicted and you want to tell us how it led to incarceration.
So during the time that I lost my daughter, the first time I got incarcerated, the drugs had done took a toll. Like in the programs that I'm in, they tell us that once you put one in you, you have allergic reaction. And I didn't get that concept until later on in recovery. So once I put that toxic chemical in my body, I started having a physical allergy that kept that craving going, feeding that demon. So it became a very vicious cycle. Not only was I arrested for the abuse of my child that I had no part of, I was fighting that. I was on probation at the time, and me and a couple of other people had broke into a pharmacy, and that led me to prison for a total of 12 years. I served 7 years incarcerated here in Kentucky at the state women's prison. And
So let's talk about what it's like being a woman in prison. 'Cause we always hear what it's like being a man in prison, but I would like for you to tell the audience what you experienced in prison and if it had any more trauma on you mentally, emotionally, physically, because we don't really get to hear how it is when women are in prison. We just hear about the men. So I would like for you to kind of, if you can, elaborate on that. Like, what was your experience being at the women's correctional facility?
so the first year and a half that I was there, I stayed quiet because my first day there, they make you feel belittled. They strip you down to nothing. They shove you inside of a shower. They take pictures of your body from front to back, head to toe. And as a woman, yeah. And they almost make you feel like you have stuff inside of you when you don't. They want full on coverage to see those areas. And, so after getting through that process, I had a dermal inside of my chest, which is a inside flesh piercing. I was told they was going to remove that immediately, or I was going to go to the hoe until I decided to get it out. So I kind of didn't have a choice but to get it out. And, that's done by a professional tattoo place, not nurses that work at the system. So I went ahead and did it. After coming out of the medical center, I seen a fight on the yard that they locked the yards down immediately. This girl had beat another girl with one of the combination locks so bad that they had to bring the ambulance in, the stretchers in. There was blood everywhere. So, like, that was the first 24 hours of being there. I was like, where am I at? What's going on? So, really, the first year and a half, I stayed really quiet because I was so scared. And then once, taking all the classes, doing all the things that they recommend you doing, and being told you can't get out for another 24 months, because you're being resentenced to the pro board. They're resentencing you all over again after the judge has then gave you time. So I spent another 24 months in there, and that's when it took a toll on me. I started acting out. The guards were nasty. I have more write ups on being disrespectful to the guards than I did anything. And that's because they come in and they expect you to kiss their butts, is the best way I can say it, and comply with what they do. But when you're asking questions and wanting help, they don't want to help. So I spent a lot of time in segregation, which took a toll on my mental health. While being in prison, I was diagnosed with borderline personality, which all my life had been told that I was bipolar. So this is something new to me. I'm trying to figure it out. No resources to figure it out. I'm calling home to people to research it and read it to me. When you're sitting in the med line for 3 hours just for the medication, and watching people abuse the medication, the guards, kind of just turning a blind eye to it. It's real sickening.
So I want to go in depth more about the whole. I do have an episode about the hole in itself and how it's as big as a parking space. And that is another space that tears people, I mean, tear you down because nobody's meant to be in a space that small with all white walls. Some prisons give you beds, some of them don't. You barely get mental health down there if you can get a guard to even hear you. You hear people screaming and hollering and talking to themselves. And with you already facing what you have faced and the trauma that you've already been through, how much worse did being in the hole make it for you? Like, how did you get through that?
Honestly, trying to sleep as much as possible and read all the books that I could. And to be honest, my Bible was my best friend. Seeing that little bit of hope in that is what probably kept me going. I was in the hole for, I think it was 90 days straight for disrespect to an officer. At one point, these girls were in there cutting their throats. I watched out of the little space that you get to see. I watched one of them be dragged out because they thought that she was dead because it was too late before they could get to her. So it really took a toll because I thought if I died, nobody would care. If I died, it would take them 2 or 3 days to find me. But then also that second thought of maybe it's better. Maybe it's better if I did that because it ain't like anybody cares anyway, you know? So it got to the point that I had to get on a lot of medications that was unnecessary to just to survive.
And I'm glad that you were able to lean on God to get you through that situation. Nobody understands that. Nobody understands the pain, the loneliness that you experience going through a situation like that. And I thank you for telling your story. You're so strong, Sasha. I couldn't imagine ever being in that situation. And for you to make it out and be an amazing woman that you are and a mom, it just speaks volumes, but God was the one that brought you through that. I wanna let you know that. So let's go to how do you feel the system offered or even helped with addiction? Or do you feel like it punished you and it's still punishing you?
Okay, so that's a really great question because I feel that it's straight punishment. I could go in and tell the psych nurse that I've been all on all these medications, basically what works for me and what doesn't, because I hear all the other inmates talking about how they feel on this medicine or that medicine. And I'm not going to tell you that I was even clean and sober in there. It got to the point that I was abusing the psych meds. And when you're playing with those kinds of medicine, you're really messing with a lot of different things in your body and your mind. And so I felt like they didn't really care. They just wanted to give you something to hurry up and get you out of there and to keep you quiet. And the reason I think it's still a punishment today is, I went to prison in 2014 to 2021 and been in recovery since 2024. And, it's still affecting my life. You know, when we go out to eat, me and my fiance, I have to sit in certain places. There's certain things that still bother me. Being behind locked doors and closed in small environments still mess with my mind. Also, it's just like the world doesn't give you second chances. You're once you mess up, you're punished for life. And that kind of brings me into the work that I do today with advocating for voting rights. In Kentucky, they strip you of your voting rights once you become convicted felon.
North
That
Carolina too.
okay, so you understand.
Yeah.
That's part of our citizenship. That goes back to the old Constitution of saying, "I am a citizen." So, yes, I think it's straight punishment.
When it comes to trying to get a job, you just mentioned voting, anything that is looked upon, looked down upon as quote unquote, they say a felon.
Okay, so let's start way back when was coming home from prison, not knowing where I'm gonna go, how I'm gonna get there. I don't really have a good home because I was homeless. Only thing that the prison gave me was a medical card, social security card, and a birth certificate, and a gold seal and said, "You're free." So coming home, filling out applications after being incarcerated for 7 years is kind of a struggle because things change, technology changes. They're having me to go on Indeed, all these websites that I'm not familiar with to fill this out, upload things on here. It was a struggle itself, just that. Then when you go in for job application or job interviews after filling out the application and you tell them, I haven't worked in so many years and this is why. You're trying to be honest.
Right.
Then you don't get a phone call back. But then you have probation and parole who says you have supervision fees that's due this month for reporting for your drug test that we didn't even test you on, but you have to pay. If you don't pay those, you get a sanction. So not only does that stack up, that stress starts building. And then my most recent experience with that was I earned a peer support license to where I can work in a rehab and maintain sobriety. Like I do all these things. I have a year clean and I can't even work with convicted felons that are going through recovery because of that child abuse, because that is a state regulation in Kentucky. But up on that, I was guaranteed the job because I knew some inside people, but they wasn't aware of these things. That's when I hit the mental button again. I started going down a slippery slope. And if I wouldn't have been in a home with other women who were going through the same things at the same time, trying to get sober, which is called sober living, and really good support, that could have easily taken me back out because that was my passion. That was something I wanted to do. That's, somebody helped me along the way. So I wanted to help other people, but being told, no, you're not even good enough to work with people like you.
I think that's from what I'm seeing, I think that's a part of reentry that a lot of our states don't understand. Like they say, well, we got these reentry programs. As soon as you come home, we'll try to help you find a job, somewhere to stay. But then when you actually come home and you go to these places that promise to help you with reentry, it's a roadblock and it's another roadblock. And I know in North Carolina, we had a law, I think that passed in 2020 or 2021 called Ban the Box, which is basically saying employers can't deny you for a job because of your background. But as we see, there's still a lot of employers that say, no, you have a felony. It's not 10 years old yet. So, we can't hire you. And so especially in today's society and today's economy, having a decent paying job and having somewhere to live, which a lot of places won't accept felons, especially if you're trying to live in public housing or housing that's affordable, you can't get in because you got a felony. And so that's what leads to the recidivism is not having stable living, not having a stable job, and being told that, okay, we can't hire you because you got a felony. So you got to go work at McDonald's or Wendy's. And don't get me wrong, it's a job, but it's not going to sustain in today's society. And understanding that you came home basically right during COVID. Like COVID happened in 2020, you came home in 2021. We're like in the height of COVID. So everything's shut down. We're standing 6 feet apart. That's a totally different world from 2014 to 2021. And then coming home during the middle of a pandemic when the whole United States is shut down, basically. Like to even get through that is amazing. And I don't think people understand how hard it is to come home from even 2 or 3 years. Things change so fast now. Like when you went in, we probably really wasn't, we were doing regular paper applications. We were going into the jobs and doing interviews. And now you have interviews on the internet. You have to do application online. You have AI was starting to be implemented back then. And so navigating all these changes in itself is overstimulating and very overwhelming. And I always say that reentry does not start the day you come home. Reentry starts the day that you get there. You need a plan for these people when they go there to make sure that their mental health is going to be sustained through prison. Two, that you are working on making sure that they have trades so that when they do come home, that they're able to, do the same trade that they're doing in prison. But those, especially like the trades, are only for people who have nonviolent crimes. They'll go to minimum and then they'll go work at a factory. But if you have a violent felony or a high felony, you can't even get into those classes.
No, and that's what I faced because, I was so in the state of Kentucky and I don't know how other states operate, but we have class D, which is your lowest, C, B, and A.
That's how we are.
And the class D, but I was serving class C time. And then my age pointed against me. The seriousness of my crime, I think they do it like a different point system that
Mhm.
tells if you're high or low risk. And my crime was not violent, but DOC on that point system recognized it as violent. And where I was at, it's behind three fences, anyways. So, I mean, there is no low level custody, even though it states that, but that's the only prison at the time that was open for women. So even if you was low level custody, you're still behind three fences a day with guard shacks all around you, so that itself is
Yeah, it's something you can't. That's maximum custody. 3 fences is maximum custody, and that in itself is just so dehumanizing that you're behind 3 fences. You got a regular fence, and then you got these barbed wire fences, and you got people in guard shacks with guns, making sure you're not trying to escape. And so, I mean, that's why we have recidivism rates that are so high because we're not making sure that, for one, we're treating people like they're humans. Like America is so bad for once you commit a crime, there's no second chance, there's no and nobody's perfect. We've all done things whether we've gotten caught or not gotten caught, but nobody's perfect, and we should never throw our communities away and say, "Oh, well, you went to prison, you have a felony, or you have a nonviolent crime." That you don't deserve to be out here in society and live like a taxpaying citizen. And I think that's what really angers me. But let's get into, how does society's judgment affect people who are trying to recover or trying to get through trauma and even just the trauma from prison, because prison is a whole different type of trauma to move forward.
so really, I think society is very judgmental. To be honest, like I'm in this Facebook group in my hometown, and I try not to say nothing a lot, but when I see people being nasty to people that are asking, "Hey, is there any places that hire convicted felons? Hey, is there any resources for housing for people with convicted felons?" And when I read those comments, 90% of the people are laughing. 90% of the people are telling them to go get it expunged, to file for a pardon. Ask the president, like, if it was that simple, we would have done that. But I also think that society doesn't understand and they're not educated on why we do the things that we do. If people really cared why an addict was an addict, maybe the world would be better. I don't think people take enough time to want to learn. And moving forward, I think society should not be so hard and have second chances for people. I know that some people, believe that second chances are earned. Well, when is enough enough? Who says that I have to be this good to earn my spot back in the society? If I'm working every day and I'm paying taxes, not only one job, but multiple, if I'm giving back to the community, if I'm fighting for everything and everybody, why am I not good enough still?
Yeah, I agree. And to me, it's not about a second chance. It's about a third, fourth, fifth. I mean, we're human. We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect.
But some
And to
people forgot the second chance.
No, at all. I mean, some people are just like literally thrown away. And then they wonder why they become addicted or why they run back to prison, because we have cultivated people to think that you're not worthy of being a citizen out here because you've committed a crime. And so, I mean, to me, it just goes back to the servitude that's been going on in the United States for over 400 years, that we've degraded our people so much so that the state can get free labor and make billions of dollars off of the backs of Americans who are struggling with trauma, and just different things in society that happens. For one, there's not enough community resources. So that's why a lot of people are either addicted or committing crimes or doing things that they normally probably wouldn't do if they had correct resources in their community. And it used to upset me to hear people talk, but I realized some people are just ignorant. And you can't fix stupidity, you can't fix ignorance, but what can is experience. And now that more people are starting to become a part of the system, that's when they understand. You don't understand until you are directly or indirectly impacted how bad this system is, how wrong this system is. We've always been taught that the system was right, whatever the prosecutor said, that's what happened. But as we see that more people are starting to be wrongfully convicted, that the state is very flawed. Very flawed. And so, that's why I did this podcast so that we can help educate people that it's not what we've been taught or been brainwashed for years about the system. Is actually a reason behind what's going on. So, do you think being judged by your past can, fortunately for you, it's made you stronger, it's pushed you harder. But for some people, they just can't handle that judgment. Do you think that it could push them back into depression, addiction, or just even spiraling?
Yes. And the reason I say that is I've not always been this strong. My faith has kept me strong, but also a really good support system. But a lot of people, yes, I've got several friends that just can't get the hang of it. And they say that, I'm better off in there. People make me feel that way. So, yes, I do believe that it can push a person back quickly. And I have to work every day on retraining my brain on my old behaviors. And I'll give you a good example. So I'm currently off work due to just having emergency surgery. My truck is broke. I have to go to probation and parole. I have to report or that's my freedom. But guess what? My truck I have to have for work, it's tore up and I'm not working, which means I can't fix that truck. So the other day, my old behaviors kicked in, was like, I can make some quick money real quick. And then I had to call somebody and be like, hey, this is my thoughts. And they're like, mm-mm. But some people don't have that go to person. And if they don't have that go to person, those thoughts can become actions quickly.
Very quickly. And that can lead you right back down the road that you fought so hard to come off and make a new road. Yeah, it's just the way the society has, I think that as a community, we're supposed to be there to help one another no matter what. And we haven't done that. We've just kicked the can down the road or just disown people for, what they've done because we don't believe in it or we've never experienced it. And so, yeah, that's where the recidivism comes from. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't have that strong support system and if you haven't built yourself up to go over those thoughts and say, you know what? No, 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 no. Go back to the other side.
Mhm.
Then, that's what leads you. And a lot of people just don't have that strength. Like, it takes a lot of strength to overcome those intrusive thoughts of, well, let me just go back to what I used to do because it was so much easier that way. You know what I mean? And I just wish that more society understood that. I'm glad that you do have that support system. Is there any advice you would like to give to somebody who might not have that support system?
On to a higher power, whatever that might be. I know out of sight, out of mind is kind of hard to believe in something, but talk to somebody. Pick up a phone, even if you feel that nobody cares, because there's somebody out there in the world that does care. And there's people that's praying for every day for you all. And
I
it,
I agree. So, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. I know there's another situation that we had talked about offline that I think needs to be brought to the spotlight. You have also been advocating for your brother who has mental challenges and is currently incarcerated. What has that experience been like for you?
so, just a little backstory on the brother, real quick. That way people understand what I'm talking about. My brother is 28 years old. He's got schizophrenia with homicidal tendencies, and he's mentally challenged. He was awarded to the state, which means he has a state social worker as his guardian. He had an episode to where, he hit my stepdad, which is his father, that was 80, and it killed him. My brother has no memory at all of what happened. He thinks that his dad's alive. The other night, he called me from the jail and was asking me to call his dad's cell phone because his dad's not answering. I tried to explain to him that's not real and it's a challenge every day to have a conversation with him. So the jail that he's at, the only way they know how to deal with him is giving him free e-cigs because that keeps him calm. And I am thankful for that because there's not many jails that will do that. But the cigarettes isn't the key. The key is Let's figure out what is wrong, what medication works. Is he taking his medicine? Those kinds of things is my question. You know, the mental evaluation that they gave him was by the state examiner who works for the state, and he seems to think that my brother is very well to stand trial when he doesn't even know that his dad's dead. In his mind, he's hearing the voices that are telling him that he's coming home soon. He calls me mom, and our mom has been dead since I was 9 years old. He goes in and out calling me mommy and sissy. And if they think that's he's able to stand trial, what's that say about our people? You know, what's that say about the people that really need help? My brother has been in every juvenile crisis unit, every mental health place since he was 4 and 5 years old. There's documentations of that. There's no help for people with those conditions because the behaviors that come with it, they're scared of the liabilities. There's a lot that goes into play with that. So he has been sitting in jail for over a year waiting on a trial for murder that he's not even aware about.
You know my thoughts
Yeah.
about that. This right here is a prime example of failure on the state's part, that they don't care about a person. All they care about is a conviction. And for a state doctor to technically, I don't see how an ethics complaint can't be filed against him, because for you to go along with the state says to prove that he's competent when there are blaring, I mean, blaring signs that he is not competent to stand trial. And that situation kind of reminds me of a situation that just happened a few months ago in Charlotte, where a lady was stabbed by somebody that was schizophrenic and currently in an active schizophrenic episode, and stabbed her on a rail train. After that happened, we passed a law that because he had been in and out of jail, they didn't understand why he wasn't, I guess, in prison. And we had a law passed that made it hard for people to get bond. And if the judges give bond, that they could possibly be held responsible. So that has only not trickled down to adults, is trickling down to children, not being able to bond out because somebody who had a mental health disorder, had an episode, was in a psychotic, manic situation and took somebody's life, and rest in peace to the lady he took, but he was not in his right mind. They did deem him incompetent to stand trial. I think it was 2 weeks ago I did see that because I actually did a co-host episode about that. And this is what I mean when I say that the system is beyond broken. Mental health is so serious in America, and we have yet to grasp how to handle it, how to control it, what to do to fix it. Yes, there's medication out there, but it doesn't always help. I have complex PTSD, and they were just throwing me on all types of medication, like Seroquel, because I wasn't sleeping for like weeks at a time. And I'm like, "It's not bothering me. Like, I'm not sleeping." He's like, "Well, we can go, it goes up to 500 milligrams." I'm like, "Oh, whoa, 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 whoa."
Yeah, I have borderline personality disorder and there is no medication for that, but they're quick to throw you on some.
Mhm.
And and if anybody reads up on that, like the only thing that works for that disorder that kind of smooths it off is a lot of therapy because it's from trauma or environmental. And so, just like you were saying, some of these diagnoses, there is no medication. So what are we doing? We're just throwing our people in a room and say, "Hey, get better," with nothing.
With nothing. With nothing. And I even had to go to behavioral health hospital, and that's just like prison. They throw you in a padded white room with nothing in there but a TV, and like, "Hey,
Mhm.
better." And so, again, this is why we are advocating hard for a change for the system, because not only have you been through a lot, you're currently trying to be strong and be there for your brother who is going through just as worse as you, who's probably not even coherent of what's going on from day to day. So, what do you wish that people understood about mental health inside of prisons or jails?
And that it's not all drug related. People automatically assume, well, they've got mental health because they're on drugs. If they just get off the drugs, their mental health will get better. That's not the case. Mental illness is real. It's not taken as serious as it should be. And how do I word this? That if people truly cared about addictions and mental health, maybe they could be nicer because you don't know what the next person's going through. You don't know if the lady at that grocery store that you just told, move out of my way, she might go home and do something because she feels like she's just in everybody's way. So I think a lot of people need to realize that mental health inside the prisons isn't rehabilitation just because you go to jail. It's punishment and it only makes it worse.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's nothing about prison that's rehabilitative, especially in America. I see Norway understands the whole concept of rehabilitation. Day one, when you come in, you have a plan. The correctional officers are very nice to you. They're there to help you. They have a living, like the living area is like as if they were at home because those are the things that keep you sane. There is a thing, such thing as post incarceration syndrome, which is just another word for PTSD, but you get it while you're in prison. And so imagine somebody who already has mental health issues, whether it's schizophrenia, bipolar, PTSD, autism. Imagine what that's doing to them when you punish them. It's not about punishment. America's always stuck on, well, we're going to punish you. This is going to make you learn your lesson. Well, if that was the case, we would not still have mass incarceration like we have today. That means it would fix everybody and everybody would get out and they would be A-okay. But that's not the case because how we go about it and how we don't support one another who are going through things. Like you said, somebody could be going through something and you're very rude to them, and then they go and unalive themselves or unalive somebody else instead of you saying, hey, are you okay? Giving them a smile, just a nice gesture to make them feel like they're wanted and that they're needed in society can make a lot of difference. And here we don't have empathy or compassion. And that's the problem. That is the problem. So before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to tell the audience? Anything that you would like to share with our audience?
Just never lose hope and always be nice to the next person because you don't know what they're going through. And if you don't know anything about addiction, stop at a rehab, volunteer, maybe volunteer at the jails, see what's really going on, get involved in your community, and let's make this world better, one piece at a time, one person at a time.
Yeah, because it takes the power of the people to change. We all have to help one another to change. And if we don't ever get that concept, we will never be where we're supposed to be, which America is supposed to be living the dream, living the American dream, but it's far from it. So, Sasha, I just want to thank you for being brave to come share your story because a lot of people don't like to tell their story because they feel like they're going to be judged over and over again. And so, a lot of times they don't want to tell their story. But thank you for sharing your story. You are an amazing human being. You are strong, and God is using you in so many ways. And you will change so many lives. And so, I just want to thank you for coming on here, sharing your story, giving us a view of what it is to be a woman caught up in the system, caught up in trauma, but on the other side, being able to make it out and to show that, I am a better person. I've been through some things, but if I didn't go through those things, I wouldn't be who I am today. So I appreciate you so very much. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
All right, Black Light. So we're gonna wrap that up. And Sasha, is there any how if people want to get in contact with you, is there any socials or anything you want to share?
Yes. So my Facebook is just under Sasha W. I've had to change that because my past. So I am available on TikTok. I think it's Sasha Sober 2025. So yeah.
Yeah, y'all reach out to Sasha if you need, any assistance or something you don't understand. Or if you have a loved one that's currently going through addiction that needs a peer support, Sasha is certified peer support. So please reach out to her. All right, Black Light, thank you for another episode. That is a wrap for this episode of Black Light Mass Incarceration Show. I am your host, Sierra. I want to thank you for spending this time with us, listening, learning, and refusing to look away. The stories we share are not just content, they are people's lives, families, and future. If this episode moved you, don't let it stop here. Share this show with someone who needs to hear it. Follow us on YouTube and any major streaming platform where you get your podcasts. Subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review so more people can find these stories. Stay connected with our work at iCare NC and learn how to get involved and support youth, and families impacted by the system. Remember, every time you choose truth over silence, you're helping to dismantle the cages seen and unseen. Until next time, keep your heart open, your mind sharp, and your light pointed right at the places they'd rather keep in the dark. This is the Black Light Mass Incarceration Show. We see you, we believe you, and we're not backing down. Peace.